And good morning to everybody, all you Niner fans. Welcome to 49er Forecast on a Saturday. Larry Krueger with you on the Sports Leader as we get you ready for the Niners and the Seahawks coming up tomorrow. And, of course, we'll have the broadcast for you. Greg Papa and Tim Ryan on the call. And John Dickinson, Adam Copeland, Dennis Brown will be on the pregame. I will join the trio for a segment in the morning on the pregame show, and then, of course, after the game as well. And it's the Niners and the Seahawks, and the Seahawks are coming off the bye, and I think we got a great hour for you. This hour, John Boyle, who covers the Seahawks for Seahawks.com, is going to stop by in about 15 minutes, and we'll get his thoughts on the matchup. The Niners, trying to get some momentum going in the second half of the year, trying to win 3 in a row for the first time all year. Seahawks are coming off the bye. They're 4-5, 2-4 at home, 2-1 on the road, but they've lost 2 in a row, and they've lost 5 out of 6. And they're having all kinds of issues. I mean, they really are. They started at the beginning of the year with Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson as their inside linebacker duo. And then they traded Jerome Baker to the Titans for Ernest Jones IV. And the other day, they just cut Terrell Dodson. And Terrell Dodson was their leading tackler. So, they're hurting. They're hurting. And they're a different linebacker duo. It's a really good secondary. Julian Love, Kobe Bryant, Reek Woolen, Devin Witherspoon. I mean, there's some really good players on the back end. The Seahawks and the Niners kind of look at football defensively the opposite. The Niners kind of look from front to back and build that way. The Seahawks kind of look from back to front. So the Niners put a lot of their money and resources into their defensive line, and the Seahawks put a lot of their resources into their defensive backfield. And thus they went out in free agency and signed Julian Love to a big money deal, and he's been fantastic. He's one of the best strong safeties in the game. And then they drafted Devin Witherspoon in the first round. They stole Reek Woolen in the 5th round, found Kobe Bryant in the 4th round. They've got a good young secondary for sure. And it's going to be interesting to see, what kind of effort, what kind of energy the Seahawks bring into this game, because they, in a lot of ways, are reeling. They got a first-year head coach. They've lost 5 out of 6. You forget, Seattle started 3-0, and people were like, oh, watch out for the Seahawks, man. Oh, my God, here they come. Brand new head coach, Mike McDonald from the Ravens. They're out of the chute 3-0, and they're going to be a house on fire. And then the bottom kind of fell out, and they've been really, really bad. And they're in last place coming into this thing in the NFC West, and they've yet to win a game in the division. They're 0-2 in the division. They're 1-4 in the conference. And they're the most penalized team in the NFL. They just had 12 penalties in their game against the Rams. Geno Smith is tied for the NFL lead with 10 interceptions. He threw 3 in his last game. He's been sacked 28 times in 9 games. That's more than all but 3 other NFL quarterbacks. So their offensive line has been a mess. And as I said, the center, Connor Williams, retired on Thursday. He had an ACL injury, and maybe that contributed to it. And this was a pretty good football player not that long ago when he was coming out of college and played with the Cowboys. But so they don't have a center. Olu Oluwatimi, the former Outland Trophy winner, will start at center. They are getting Abraham Lucas back, their starting right tackle. But they're struggling. They're struggling on that offensive line. They don't open run lanes for Kenneth Walker. They ran Walker 25 times in the last game against the Rams, and he only had like 80 yards on the game. It was really, they ran it a lot, but they weren't efficient. And in their last 2 games alone, they've had 3 botched shotgun snaps from center. And now they got a brand new center. So, it's going to be really interesting. There's been a number of games. I watched the all 22, coaches film of like 4 or 5 of the Seahawks games in preparation for this matchup. And you can see that they've tried to come out in a lot of these games and establish the run, but they have just been unable to because they can't block it up front. So they rank 28th in rushing yards per game. They only run for 91.2 yards per game. And they rank 23rd in yards per carry at 4.1. But even that's a little distorted. They actually are a little worse than that. And they don't run it a lot. I mean, they're 31st in the NFL in designed rush rate. They only run the ball 31.2% of their offensive snaps. Their offensive coordinator is a college guy, Ryan Grubb, who coordinated some very kind of what I would describe as almost pass-happy systems at Fresno State and at Washington. And this is his first year. And surprise, surprise, they don't have much of a run game. And really what's happening to them is that they're putting tons of pressure on Geno on third down to make it all happen. They're not getting anything done on first and second down. Seattle's average distance needed to convert on third down this year is 8.9 yards. That's far and away the worst mark in the NFL. So they don't get anything done on first down. They don't get anything done on second down. And they're handing Geno a ton of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10 or longer. And so, it's like if you look at the first half of games, like, the first two quarters, Seattle's rush rate is 31.1%. So it's not even like they're giving away, they're giving up on the run in the second half. They're coming out passing. That 31.1% rush rate is second lowest in the NFL. So, as I said, they came out running against the Rams. Walker had 25 carries for 83 yards. He's still the key guy for the Niners. You got to stop Kenneth Walker. 87.9 yards from scrimmage per game. That's 17th in the league. 7 touchdowns. That's 10th in the league. They're going to throw him screen passes. The Niners struggle at defending the pass out of the backfield to the running back. So expect that. Expect Seattle to throw the ball to Kenneth Walker on screen passes and make the Niners, prove that they can tackle him in the open field. So interestingly enough, Seattle's defense did hold the Rams to 2.8 yards per carry in their game November the 3rd. But over their first 8 games, Seattle allowed 148 rushing yards per game, which is 29th in the league, and 4.9 a carry, which is 28th in the league. So the one change they did make, as I said, they cut their leading tackler, Terrell Dodson, and they replaced him with Tyrese Knight, who's a rookie linebacker who played at UTEP, who's a good player, 4th-round pick, a little undersized, but he can really run and hit. So I would imagine the combo of Tyrese Knight and Ernest Jones is probably better than Jerome Baker and Terrell Dodson. The interesting matchup here is going to be on the perimeter is DK Metcalf, and he's likely to play. He's got the MCL sprain, but he's likely to play against the 49ers, and Mooney Ward hasn't been there all week. I don't expect he'll be there this weekend. So, it's DK at less than 100%, and the Niners don't have the DK stopper. So expect Renardo Green and Demo Lenore, and then probably a little bit of Rock Ya-Sin and Isaac Yiadom. If there's one area that I think John Lynch did a really nice job in the offseason, it was giving the 49ers more veteran depth at corner. And Isaac Yiadom is really, really a smart player. And then Rock Ya-Sin, and we're going to hear from Rock Ya-Sin later this hour. Caught up with Rock in the locker room yesterday. One of my favorite interviews that I've done this year. We talked a lot about perimeter players, corners, safeties, the Niners' young DBs, the Niners' young receivers. And Rock is just really, really smart. As a veteran in this league, a guy who, has played a number of years now, he's seen it. He's seen a lot. And those are the best guys to talk to. Why? Because they have perspective. They have they've seen a bunch of corners. They've seen a bunch of receivers. So they notice traits that you and I really don't notice. And it's much more of a cerebral game than you would ever believe. So we'll talk to Rock later on this hour and get his thoughts on a number of the Niners and a number of the Seahawks as well as we get you ready for tomorrow. The Niners have owned Seattle. They're trying to sweep Seattle for the 3rd straight year. They're 6.5-point favorites. Niners won the first matchup week 6 on the Thursday nighter up at Lumen Field, 36-24. But to me, it's really interesting that the Niners could not beat Seattle when they had Russell Wilson. I mean, just couldn't beat him. Russell Wilson in all of those games would hold the ball for at least one play for 8, 9, 10 seconds and just break the defense down. And it just seemed like so many of those games, it was Russell on the field, putting the Niners away with a first down or running for a first down. And then, he got older and they had to pay him. They had to move him. Then they moved off of him and decided to go with Geno. And the Niners wind up with Brock Purdy. In a lot of ways, Brock Purdy has a lot of traits that are very similar to Russell Wilson. Not the biggest guy, but very strong, real good mobility, incredible quickness, very difficult to sack. And then suddenly it went from the Niners can't beat Russell to the Seahawks can't beat Brock. And that's kind of the way it's been. The Niners are what, 5-0, I believe. They've won 6 in a row against Seattle, but Brock himself is 5-0 in these matchups against the Seahawks. So, that is something else. And when you really think about how well Brock Purdy has played against Seattle, he owns them. He absolutely owns them. He beats them consistently. He doesn't turn it over. He plays really, really smart football, and he just consistently beats them. And it's funny, I was listening to Mike McDonald's presser earlier this week, and he was talking about, oh man, it's point of emphasis. We've got to get Brock Purdy on the ground. We're rushing him, we're hitting him, we're sometimes getting some pressure, we're moving him off the spot, but we can't get this guy on the ground. So that was their point of emphasis this week in Seattle. Get Brock on the ground. Purdy's career against Seattle, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 1,381 passing yards, a 118 passer rating, 5-0 record. He has owned them. He has absolutely owned them. So it's going to be an interesting game. Jawan Jennings was back on the practice field. George Kittle was back on the practice field. Those guys are a little dinged up. We'll have to wait till game time to see exactly who goes. Could be a big Ricky Pearsall game. Could be Pearsall continues to get nothing but better and better and better. I thought this last game against Tampa, he looked great. He really did look great. And him and Purdy are getting, more and more in lockstep. They're looking more and more in tune with one another. So look for the rookie from Florida to step up and play huge. To me, the big key in this game for the 49ers is on the defensive side. Don't let Kenneth Walker kill you as a receiver. Week 6, back in that matchup at Lumen, Walker had a 17% target share. He caught 8 balls. So that he's a key guy to stop in the pass game. The Niners allow the 6th most receiving yards to running backs this year. He's got 30 receptions on the year for 217 yards. And he's only played in 7 games. So, Kenneth Walker is dangerous in the open field. He's a tough guy to corral. And to me, that's the key. You have to stop him in the pass game. If you let Geno throw him screen passes all day, if Walker piles up 80, 90, 100 yards receiving, it could be a long day. It absolutely could be a long day. I don't expect that to be the case. I expect the 49ers to take it to Seattle and win convincingly. I like the Niners, and I like the Niners minus the number. All right, let's take a timeout. We're going to come back. John Boyle covers the Seahawks for Seahawks.com. He's going to join us next. We'll get his thoughts on the matchup, and then we'll let you hear our conversation from inside the locker room with Niners veteran corner Rock Ya-Sin, and you won't want to miss it because he was very, very good. It's all straight ahead. It's 49er Forecast on a Saturday on The Sports Leader.
Brock's had a lot of success against Seattle. Is there anything, when you look back on those games, that kind of stands out as why he's had that kind of success?
I mean, we play him twice a year, and Brock's had a lot of success versus a lot of teams in these, 2 years. I don't think he lost anyone in our division until this year. And this year he's lost 2 of them, but we beat Seattle earlier, so he's undefeated versus them. I mean, Brock's had in his 7 games his rookie year, I think. I mean, he didn't lose a game, and his numbers were unbelievable. And his last year, playing the whole year, he lost 4 games and none in the division, and that's some real impressive stats. And he's been doing a good job this year. So I don't think it's any coincidence of Seattle. I just think Brock's been playing a pretty high level.
Faithful Larry Krueger's rocking the red and gold as 49ers forecast continues on KNBR, the sports leader.
Yeah, we keep it rolling on a Saturday. Hope everybody's having a phenomenal November the 16th, kind of that great time of the year weather-wise. It's clear and crisp and cool, and the Seahawks will be in town tomorrow to take on the 49ers, and John Boyle from Seahawks.com is with us on the UMA guest line to break it all down and talk a little bit about the matchup with us on 49er Forecast. What's going on, John? Thanks for the time.
Hey, happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Seahawks. There's a lot of controversy, a lot of interesting stories around the Seahawks. They cut Terrell Dodson this week. They went with Tyrese Knight. I really love Tyrese Knight. I thought he was a steal by John Schneider in the draft, so I'm kind of eager to see what Knight's got. But Dodson was the leading tackler. He's only 26. He had 71 tackles on the year. And he went on, I guess he went in the Sun Sentinel, and he said, emotionally, I'm still going through ups and downs of it. I'm pissed off. I'm very pissed off, and I'm going to probably stay pissed off until my career ends years down the road. I'm pissed off. That's the word. Does he have a legitimate reason to be upset because of how things ended in Seattle?
Yeah, I'm not behind the scenes knowing how that all played out. I think probably like most everyone, he was pretty surprised by that. Now, I will say I think that they let him go versus making him a backup to try to give him a chance to play somewhere. So maybe from that standpoint, maybe over time he sees that and feels better about the move. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie to you and say I came into work Monday expecting the Seahawks to make that change. So it was a bit of a surprise. But they, Mike McDowell did kind of tell everyone before the bye, we're going to evaluate everything, look at everything, and apparently part of what they looked at is they decided they wanted to give the rookie Tyrese Knight a chance. He did start 2 games due to injury earlier this season and, played pretty well. And the coaches have told us they've just seen nothing but growth from him since then. So I definitely can understand the getting younger. And then it just, I guess, becomes a situation of, do we keep this guy around for depth if he's not going to be very happy in a backup role, or do we let him go try to find another home? And, they chose the latter.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes the players don't understand that, but they probably did right by the player in this situation because he is only 26, and they don't want to mire him on the bench. That being said, Seattle, they're giving him an opportunity to go kind of find a new spot. I think that's the positive move, really.
Yeah, especially he was a guy here on a 1-year deal, so he's going to be a free agent after this year. So it's going to be better for him if he can go to Miami and play a bunch and make himself hopefully some money in the off season, because I do think he's a good player. I don't I don't know the decision of how they came to it, but they obviously saw just something they liked in Tyrese Knight better. But I do think Tyrell Dodson's still really good, and as you said, pretty young player. So I do think his future is still pretty bright.
The numbers don't look like they can stop the run, but are they better since they moved off of Baker for Ernest Jones the fourth?
It sure seems that way. If you just look at, granted it's a 1-game sample size, and the Rams' offense has not been super consistent this year, but they do have a lot of talent there. And they held the Rams as 2.8 yards a carry, 68 total rushing yards. So they do feel like they've cleaned some things up quite a bit. It had been pretty bad for a while, and then the second half of their win in Atlanta they felt pretty good about, but then it kind of backslid a little bit. The last 2 games, just the last game before that, the loss to Buffalo, but then against the Rams again before the bye, they felt like they really took a step forward. So they're healthier up front than they've been all season. When they played the 49ers last time, they did not have their first round pick, Byron Murphy. They've since added some other guys to the front line. So they do feel like they're better up front, better suited to stop the run, but this obviously will be a very big test. They've yet to hold Christian McCaffrey under 100 yards since he joined the 49ers.
Yeah, no, McCaffrey's had a lot of success. Seattle currently ranks 23rd in the NFL in scoring defense, 25th, I believe, in total defense as far as yards, which, is a little surprising considering McDonald's a defensive coach and they have some defensive talent. What's your feeling on McDonald? Were you expecting their defense to be more dominant this year? Did you see this year as kind of a transition year? He sure had an awful lot of defensive talent in Baltimore. That's hard to replicate.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be fair to just assume he's going to come in and turn the Seahawks into what Baltimore was last year. I mean, his system's not a super easy one to learn. It takes some time. I think, there were always going to be some growing pains. If anything, their early success might have kind of changed expectations, probably unfairly, where, they went out and they dominated some, at the time, not great offenses. Baltimore's gotten a lot better, Denver's gotten a lot better since the season opener, but they go out, they win those first three, and I think everyone thought, oh boy, this guy's really got some magic going. And then there's going to be adjustments. They've at times been really beat up on defense. That game they went to Detroit and lost. They were missing, I think, 5 or 6 starters on defense. So they've dealt with a lot of injuries on defense, and I just think it's taken some time to fully get used to that scheme and everything Mike's asking of them. Yeah, if you really go back and look at 2 years ago when he took over the defensive coordinator role in Baltimore, it took some time for them to get going as well. It wasn't just right off the bat dominance. It was kind of midway through that first year, and then obviously last year was so impressive. So, again, they like what they saw against the Rams, even in the loss. I think they're hoping that can be kind of a launching off point. But, yeah, it's been a little up and down, probably more than he would like for sure.
We're talking to John Boyle from Seahawks.com on the UMA guest line as we look ahead to Niners Seahawks tomorrow. When I think Niners Seahawks, John, I always, especially the current version, I think of DK against Mooney Ward just because it's such a ferocious matchup, and Ward really takes a lot of pride in the fact that he matches up well with DK. But we're not getting that this week. Ward is out, for personal reasons due to the death of his infant daughter. DK's got an MCL sprain, and he is going to kind of try to give it a go, I would imagine. What do you think we'll see from DK? How serious is that MCL sprain, or is he going to be kind of a secondary player to Jackson Smith Najigba?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how they use him. I mean, he's definitely, I think he and the team feels like he's back. He was full go and practice all week, and I think the bye week came at a good time for him where he missed the 2 games, and then I think the initial hope they were hoping maybe to even get him back after just 1 game missed, but he just wasn't quite ready. So I don't think he's going to really be limited either in his explosiveness or his play time. But I mean, I think in general the way they've always functioned, irregardless of what Jackson Smith and Njigba did last week with his 180 yards and 2 touchdowns, they feel like between Njigba, Tyler Lockett, Metcalf, they've always been an offense where they can, kind of go where the defense is dictating it, where you don't need to force the ball. DK Metcalf, now, he is a rare talent, and they're going to try to get him the ball no matter what. That last 49ers game was an interesting one. The stat line was not good at all, but he was, an illegal shift penalty away from a 50-yard touchdown, and he was about a toe length from another touchdown. So he, could have had a decent game there as well. But, I think, he's going to be full go, and I think they're going to look to get him the ball, but they're not going to force feed him when you do have Njigba coming off a big game like that. Really, his first chance to be kind of more of the featured downfield guy, and then he showed up really well in that game.
One of the stories here has been the 49ers have really struggled on special teams, and they struggled in the game up in Seattle. I mean, Laviska Shenault took one back. He almost took the opening kickoff back. The Niners are having problems on special teams, and the Niners special teams coordinator, a lot of people are calling for him to be fired. He's a guy that you guys know really well. It's Brian Schneider, who was up there during the Super Bowl years. What do you think of Coach Schneider? I mean, he kind of came here with a reputation as being one of the NFL's better special teams coaches, and for whatever reason, the Niners this year have just had massive, huge mistakes, and the fans are, every week that goes by, they're louder and louder in their discontent and demanding him to be fired. Shanahan shows no interest in doing that. Are you surprised that Schneider's special teams have struggled here?
I am. I mean, look, I can't pretend I've been paying close attention to know what all the issues are. I've just, like you said, I've heard that they've had a lot of problems. And I am very surprised because he was known as a really, considered one of the better special teams coaches in the league during his time here. for Pete Carroll, special teams was always a huge emphasis, and I think, the coach matters, but I think also, again, this is not a criticism of the 49ers. I don't know what they're doing over there, but I do think, sometimes the special teams coach's success has to do with the head coach and, how much practice time he's willing to dedicate to it, how many, what kind of talent he's willing to let play special teams. So I think that was also part of, Pete Carroll always saw a lot of value in that. So, they, for really years and years, they were always among the leaders in a lot of special teams categories here. So, but, I always had great interaction with Brian Schneider. I thought he was a really good coach, and I know players thought highly of him. So to your initial question, I have been surprised that that's been an issue for them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really like him as well. I've had, a couple conversations with him, and he's always really, really sharp. He seems really prepared. Now, granted, special teams this year in the NFL was kind of a crapshoot with the new kickoff rules. And then when you lose your kicker and you're not kicking it through the back of the end zone and you're relying on trying to, play coverage units against a kickoff play that hardly anybody, has defended. I mean, I understand why there are some inherent issues, but, I mean, they have to be better. One of the things that I kept hearing from people in Seattle this week was that Schneider oftentimes, and you kind of referenced it, that he will sometimes play some of his starters, some of the defensive starters played on special teams. And maybe that's the key here. Maybe the 49ers have to commit some starters to special teams in a little heavier dose than they have going forward. How much do you think that might have been a key to his success up there? Because they did, I can remember Brandon Browner and a couple guys playing on special teams, and those guys were starters.
Yeah, I mean, I do think some of that comes to the head coach as well, because a special teams coach can go to his head coach and say, I want so-and-so, and ultimately the coach is going to decide who's available and who's not for that. So, yeah, I mean, the Seahawks weren't generally going to throw a, big second contract, big money guy. Bobby Wagner's not out there covering kicks 5 years into his career, but definitely some of the younger starters. You referenced Browner. He was an awesome gunner, just tossing dudes around, really physical guy. Doug Baldwin, everyone knows him as being a great receiver throughout his career. He made the team and was a standout on special teams, and he was the kind of guy that, even after he'd established himself as a starter, he was asking to be out there. He loved, being a wing on the punt team, things like that. So that was, I think, part of the culture really that Pete Carroll established and John Schneider as well, is like, this matters, and we're going to let some of our starters play out there. So for sure that, again, this is not me criticizing 49ers. I don't know really their strategy there, but I do think if you really want to be elite on special teams, sometimes it just has to be what kind of talent you are willing to put out there.
We've kind of buried the lead a little bit. The big story this week was that Connor Williams, the Seahawks center, retired because of personal reasons. Mike McDonald making the announcement on Friday, and my first assumption was, well, okay, the guy blew out his ACL, and maybe he's having a hard time coming back, and maybe there's residual pain and stiffness, and it's not coming around. I don't know, but from what I'm hearing and reading, the retirement didn't have anything to do with the rehab from the ACL injury. Is there any light you can shed on the Williams retirement? I know he had not been playing particularly well. He's in his 7th NFL season. He signed a 1-year deal with the Hawks in August. Started every game this year. He's only 27. You don't see 27-year-old players walk away from the NFL very often. What's the story? Is there a story?
I certainly would not pretend to know what's going on with him. Like Mike McDonald said, it's personal, and I was not aware of anything going on before that, and was probably as caught off guard as everybody else. I had the same thought as you when I heard earlier this week that was coming down. I thought, oh, his knee must be. He must have decided, this was his second ACL injury in his career, and I figured, he must just be thinking, I don't feel right, I don't want to keep doing this. So for Mike McDonald to say, he was directly asked how is this related to his injury, and Mike McDonald said no. So, again, we don't know what's going on. We'll see. The team wants to leave that up to Connor Williams to decide if he wants to talk about it. So McDonald was trying to respect his privacy. But, yeah, and as you said, 27-year-old starter, I would maybe push back against he wasn't playing well this year. I think he was playing pretty good football, other than the big red flag that showed up in recent weeks that's hard to overlook, is there were some bad snaps and, minus 20-yard plays with snaps getting by Geno Smith. So that part's tough to overcome. But before that, I think he was one of their more consistent guys up front. So it's a blow for the Seahawks. It's, a tough adjustment. They do feel good about the second-year center they have going in, Olu Atimi. He's the guy they drafted last year, and until Connor Williams, he signed late in camp. So Olu was, throughout OTA's mini camp, the first couple weeks of camp, he was the starter. So even though he doesn't have a lot of NFL experience, He's got a lot of work with that first team offense with the linemen around him with Geno Smith, so they don't feel like this is some green, inexperienced guy going in.
The offensive line, oftentimes when teams struggle, it takes a lot of the criticism. Oluwatimi, I believe, won the Outland Trophy, and he was a 5th-round pick. I think a lot of people thought that he was going to be a star in the NFL. We'll find out if that winds up being the case. I was looking at some of the offensive line numbers, and Anthony Bradford, the right guard, I guess his numbers look the worst. Has he been the weakness? And I know Abraham Lucas is coming back. How much do you expect Lucas to maybe help Bradford when he plays Sunday for the first time?
Yeah, I think for sure getting Lucas back. We don't know for sure if he's starting. It sounds like he'll play, but be on the pitch count. So whether that means he starts and they spell him with the rookie Mike Jarrell, or maybe Jarrell starts and they mix them in. We don't really know what that's going to look like. But whenever whenever they get Abe Lucas back and he's full go, he's going to really help. He just brings, nothing against the other guys who play that position, but he brings an attitude, a toughness, just kind of that nastiness you really want from a right tackle. And, he's just more experienced than, when you got a rookie out there, it's harder for a rookie to, if somebody needs to get on Anthony Bradford or, help him out, it's a lot harder for a 6th-round pick rookie to do that than if you have a guy who started a bunch of games and is a much more established player. So I think he will help Anthony Bradford and really help that whole line. But they talked about, their offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb talked about when they were looking at things at the bye, like there's things schematically they can and do need to do to help that line as well, because the pressure numbers have not been good. Geno Smith has been under a lot of pressure, a lot of quick pressures, and he handled it remarkably well for how tough it's been on him this year. But they, whether it's guys just playing better or the change of getting Abe Lucas back or some schematic stuff, they got to find ways to help that line out and just, help Geno Smith.
2 last ones before we let you go. We really appreciate your time. We're talking to John Boyle from Seahawks.com on the UMA guest line. Niners and Hawks go tomorrow, and you'll hear it on the Sports Leader. Give us the Seahawk perspective on Purdy. It's really interesting to me that the Niners couldn't beat Russell, and now it seems like, the Seahawks with Russell, and now the Niners have their own kind of very similar version of Russell and Brock Purdy, and it's flipped. And now the Seahawks can't seem to beat the Niners, and Purdy's like putting games away and doing a lot of things that Russell did to put games away. I remember one of those games where he kind of slid forward on the sideline and extended the ball and got the first down. Very Russell Wilson-esque. How do you how do Seahawk fans and the Seahawk organization and the media up there, how do you guys see Brock Purdy?
Yeah, I think there's been sort of a shift in the perception of him over the last couple of years. Especially just seeing fans react on social media stuff. I think early on the thought was, and this is probably not unique to Seahawks fans, of, oh, he's just a product of Shanahan and the talent around him. And then it sort of shifted this begrudging respect, like, no, okay, he actually is pretty good, and it's really annoying that they got him in the 7th round. But yeah, he's been a really good player, and it's, as you mentioned, it's been a really interesting, this rivalry. The Seahawks dominated for so long, and then it just flipped on its head. Now it's been, 6 straight for the 49ers. I do think in both cases, you mentioned the quarterbacks, and they obviously get the attention and stand out. But I do think also that in both cases, it's been, for most of those years in both sides of it, it's been a reflection of just the quality of the teams overall. I think for a lot of that stretch, the Seahawks just had the better roster, and I think in recent years, the 49ers have had the better roster. And especially you look at the battles in the trenches, the 49ers have won up front in pretty much every one of those games, and it's hard to win in the NFL if you're not winning up front, and the Seahawks know that. So they've been trying to get better there, and they would love to end that streak and get Geno Smith his first win against 49ers and get Brock Purdy a loss against the Seahawks.
Last one for you. It's so funny when the Niners were losing all those games to the Seahawks. People down here hated Richard Sherman, hated him, and of course he went to Stanford, and then he came. Yeah, and then he came back to the Niners, and now it almost feels like he's more of an ex-Niner than an ex-Seahawk sometimes when I watch some of his stuff that he puts out there. But they hated Sherman. They hated Cam Chancellor for the big hit on Vernon Davis on the sideline. They hated Cliff Averill, and they hated Michael Bennett. And, obviously we always love Marshawn because Marshawn is our guy, and he's from here. But up there, if you're up there, you get a sense of it. Who are the most hated 49ers? Because the Niners are they're the rival, right? Yeah. They're the team that everybody hates. So what Niner players rub you guys the most wrong up there?
I would guess, being on the media side of things, I've had a more neutral stance. So this is not personal. This is just what I sense from hearing from fans. I would say Kittle probably, just because he has a lot of success against the Seahawks and just kind of a demonstrative guy, and he'll talk after games and stuff like that. And then probably Bosa, but McCaffrey, I think, falls in that respect. Is just there's some players around the league that everyone just respects. And yeah, he's just really good. And, I think of Larry Fitzgerald. Nobody disliked Larry Fitzgerald. I kind of
all class.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of Seahawks fans oh, I don't like him. And Fitzgerald's the ultimate example. I don't think I ever heard a Seahawks fan, even when he's killing him, say bad things on him. But yeah, probably I'd guess maybe Bosa, Kittle. I don't know if Seahawks fans have long memories. Maybe Trent Williams from when he smacked Richard Sherman in the head after a game back.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one. That was a pretty good smack too.
Yeah, it was. But yeah, I don't. This doesn't strike me as oh, we hate all these guys. I think it's just more like Seahawks fans are sick of losing to them, and they they don't really care how it's done, but they just want to see the Seahawks. That's sort of been the benchmark in the NFC West for a while, and the Seahawks need to flip that if they want to. As Geno Smith said, if we want to be the team we think we are, we got to go through them.
Well, I can't wait. It's on tomorrow. Another edition. The Seahawks lead the all-time series against the Niners, and not too many teams do. So, John, thanks for the time. We really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on KNBR this morning and previewing the game.
Yep, happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
John Boyle, Seahawks.com. We'll take a timeout. We're going to come back. Rock Ya-Sin, Niner veteran corner. What a luxury item he is to have that good of a player just on your bench ready to step in. They needed him last week. He was there for them. He made a huge play. We'll talk about that play and his perspective on some of the young Niner DBs and receivers next as we continue with 49er Forecast on the Sports Leader.
faithful. Larry Kruger's rocking the red and gold as 49ers forecast continues. On KNBR, the sports leader. Sports leader.
All right, we're here in the Niner locker room with Niners veteran corner Rock Ya-Sin. And Rock, man, you made a big play last week. You bought in your time. All of a sudden, you're in the moment. And take us back to the play and what you saw.
I knew it was 3-by-1, backside. I knew he was pushing the coverage over that particular game plan, so I knew the ball probably was coming my way. I saw Baker. Baker, gave his guy a chance. Thank God I was able to make the play and give us a chance to win the game late in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, huge play in the game.
Yeah.
Right before that play, Big Evan Anderson made a huge play in the backfield.
Yeah.
What's it like watching that kid come of age, man? He is a talented kid.
Yeah, he is. He's really talented. Works hard. Just like nobody deserves it more. I think the success he's having now, I feel like he set it up in training camp, going hard every day, taking advantage of opportunities in preseason. I think he started the year on practice squad and worked his way up to the active roster and just really taking advantage of every opportunity he's gotten, on special teams, on defense, and, now he's showing up.
How are you a different player than the player that was at Temple?
Just more experience, I think. I had the same mentality, competitiveness, toughness, just more experience now, going on year 6 in the NFL.
When it comes to watching film, go back to your rookie year coming out of college compared to now.
It's a lot different.
Yeah, a lot different.
Yeah.
What are things? Give me one or two things that you notice now that you would not have noticed as a rookie.
Just conceptually, what an offense wants to do. You start to play against different OCs 2 or 3 or 4 times, different systems 2 or 3 or 4 times. You know what these OCs like to do. Like for instance, the Shanahan tree or the Kubiak, those trees. You start to realize what they want to do, the condensed splits, the RPOs, whatever. You start to kind of pair things together and know how this team wants to attack you. You know what I mean? Especially, and then looking at the scheme you're in, if you're in a single high scheme or a 2 high scheme or in a man-to-man scheme, knowing how this offense wants to attack you in this particular scheme that you're playing in.
Game recognizes game, so a lot of times you guys know exactly who else is good. Tell me a little bit about some of these other guys in your room. I'll give you a name. You give me your first thought. Renardo. What do you think of Renardo?
Dog, man. That boy, dog, man.
Why is he so good?
It's just no moment's too big for him, bro.
Yeah.
I really admire the way him coming in as a rookie, thrust into the fire, man, and he's never blinked one time. Put him out there against anybody one-on-one. He doesn't blink, man. I really admire it about him, being a young guy, a rookie, coming in and taking advantage of opportunities, man. I think he's going to be a really good corner in this league for a really long time.
Yeah, the thing that stands out to me is he's got this unshakable confidence.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's like he thinks he's really good, and he is really good.
He is very good, but he walks around
he's great.
Just stepping on the field, you can tell, you watch the silent tape, it tells a huge story. You can tell it's a guy who's playing extremely confident, and playing extremely well. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy to see him continue to ascend in his career.
Give me another one. Luter. What do you think of Luter? Big, long, rangy kid.
Long, fast,
a lot of talent, huh?
Quiet, but confident, extremely talented, ball skills. I feel like the sky's the limit for Darrell Luter.
Did you play zone or man at Temple? Because he played nothing but press man at South Alabama.
Similar at Temple. We play a little bit of cover 3, but mostly we play a lot of man-to-man.
Does that help you to play a lot of man in college coming into the league, or is it different?
I believe so. No, I believe it's a little bit different, but just the mentality, being able to go one-on-one. And then, sometimes in college, you might cover for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 seconds. You know what I mean? The rush might not get there, but here with these guys, boasting in them, then the balls will come out. So
a couple more guys. Demo. Give me something on Demo, man.
Different, man. I don't think I've ever played with a guy that's a playmaker like Demo. Demo is in the run game. Obviously in the pass game, turn the ball over. Anytime you throw the ball up to him, he feel like it's his ball. And not a lot of corners play that way. And then, him playing nickel, able to fit the run, shed blocks, just playing so physical. He plays like he's 6'3" and 240 pounds in the run game. It's amazing to see. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah, he hits like a linebacker, man. He shows up to hit.
It's very different.
How about one of my favorites? How about the kid Mustafa? What do you think of him?
Ball player, man. It's a freak. He's a freakish athlete, extremely strong, extremely physical, extremely explosive. Some of the things that he does is you can't teach. The explosiveness, And it's changed the direction and the way he's just like a heat-seeking missile. I mean, he's in on every tackle, it seems like. I mean, I feel like he's going to be a really great player for a really long time in this league.
Mooney,
just a savvy, just a real true number one, man, like a real true all-pro corner. I mean, press man, playing off, really smart, really savvy, you know what I mean, athletic, long, big, intimidating. I feel like every time he goes and presses a receiver, you can feel like they're intimidated. They don't give him the same releases they give other guys because they know, like, if he gets his hands on you, that's the end of the route. So, I mean, just a really, it's been a joy, like, learning from him and being around him. I think he's a really, really good player. I think he will continue to have success in this league.
He's going through a tragic situation.
Yeah,
How can you guys support him?
Just, by, number one, praying for him, first and foremost, just praying for him and being there for him, reaching out to him and, just let him know that we're here for him, anything he needs, whether it's a ear to listen, a shoulder to cry on, whatever he needs, we're all here for him and support him in any way we can.
You're a luxury man. You could have gone a lot of places and started, but you came here. Is it because you want the ring? What brought you to San Francisco?
The culture. I feel like this is a really, really good team, and it's going to be, a team that's going to have a shot, at the end. And I want to play in big games, and I want to continue to get better. I mean, when you get in this kind of environment, you get around really good players, you only can elevate. So I just want to continue to elevate my game and continue to grow. Even though it's year 6, I want to continue to grow and continue to get better and continue to put out, good film and just, continue to take advantage of opportunities.
You're playing well. Is there somebody here that's helped you develop your game this year?
I feel like I've learned from everybody, man.
Really?
Isaac Yadam,
Has he helped you?
Oh, 100%, man. Ike, man, is like probably one of the most technically sound corners in the NFL. Then it helps that he's run 22, 23 miles an hour with long arms, physical. He has like a lot of tools. But just talking to him, talking through like, techniques and watching film with him and just being around him, like he's a really, really intelligent, very extremely intelligent person. So I feel like I learned a lot from him.
You've played on a few teams. Do the teams have different personalities?
Oh, 100%. Every locker room is different, man.
What's this room like? What would you describe this room?
It's a veteran group of guys, you know what I mean? For the most part, you got George Kittle down there, Christian McCaffrey, Fred Warner, Trent Wood. You got all these guys, who are, poised and ready for the moment. Like they played in a lot of big games. They played in 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 or 5 years. NFC championships almost every year. So like it's normal to them to be in the dance, to be in the big games. So. They're never out of it. We're never out of it in this room, man. And the focus and the attention to detail here is like second to none. Every day out there in practice, walkthroughs, meetings, you can tell it's a championship culture.
Really?
And we want to win here.
How about Ravens? What was the Ravens like?
Similar. It was a championship culture there. They're gonna have a shot at the end. You know what I mean? I think they have the best player in the NFL, in Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position. They got Derrick Henry. They got some receivers. They got, Mark Andrews. They got Isaiah Likely. You name all the players and pieces they have. Good coaching, John Harbaugh. I mean, they're gonna have a shot at the end as well. In the AFC for sure.
A couple last ones. You talk to corners. Corners, no receivers. So let's talk a couple of receivers. DK. If I say DK, what stands out about DK?
Big, physical, fast, strong. Just a real deep threat, a real good number 1 receiver.
Yeah. How about Lockett, who's not the same size, totally different receiver, huh?
Oh, but savvy, very savvy veteran. I mean, have a lot of respect for Tyler Lockett. I mean, he's a really good player. Been doing it for a really long time, and he's been really consistent for a lot of years. And I think he still has a lot of good ball ahead of him.
A couple guys in here. Give me your thought on Debo.
Debo is very versatile. It's so hard to play against Debo, man. I remember like playing against these guys. How you game plan is like. Where is Debo? Where is Debo? That's the first thing you got to identify. Where is Debo? Because he can go in the backfield and run real running back plays. He can run power, inside zone, whatever, and then he can come out of the backfield. He's a matchup nightmare for a linebacker. So it was just really versatile. Then he can go outside, and run all the routes outside as well. Very versatile receiver.
Last receiver, Pearsall. What do you think of the rook?
Oh, smooth, man. Just smooth. Ricky is smooth, man. Line scrimmage, smooth in all his routes. He can run every route, in the route tree. And he's just, a really good, solid player. I think he's going to be a great player in this league for a long time.
Man, awesome talking to you. Give me one last one for you. fans always want to know you guys. They want to get to know you guys. So give me something like if we don't know Rock Ya-Sin, what do you like to do when you're not hanging here, when you're not watching film, when you're not prepping to be a pro football player? What are you into?
I'm real chill, man. I just hang out with my family. I read a lot. I'm not into it too much. I'm really chill. Yeah, I read a lot. That's my thing.
Like novels and that kind of thing? Or?
No, I'm more like history, Islamic literature,
nice.
That type of thing, yeah.
Yeah, trying to expand your mind, huh?
Yeah, always.
Awesome. Hey, man, good luck the rest of the way. Had a fantastic game last week. Keep it rolling. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Rock Ya-Sin.
All right. Love talking to Rock, man. Good dude. There's a lot of good stuff in there. We could go on and on and on. The thing that really stood out to me about that interview, a couple things. One, when he talked about Demo Lenore as a nickel defender in the box, he's like, man, he's out there, and Demo's like 5'10", 200. And he's like 6'3", 240. And that's, he plays. Demo Lenore against the run in the box plays like a linebacker. I mean, that's what makes him such an incredible slot corner, is that you put him in the box, and all of a sudden he's a run defender, and he's a good run defender. So I thought that was cool. And then when he talked about Mustafa, and he's like, oh, man, he's a freak. Extremely strong, explosive, change of direction. He's like, he's in on every tackle. He's going to be awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, there's no question, Mustafa. And then Renardo, he talked about Renardo. But the other thing that really stood out is that if you're going to be good at whatever in life, right? It doesn't matter if you're playing corner like Rock Ya-Sin, if you're a talk show host, if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a salesperson, whatever you do. If you're going to be really, really good, you have to want to continue to get better. And I asked him, why'd you come to San Francisco? He's like, I want to continue getting better. This is a good place to be. I want good coaching. I want to be challenged. This guy's pushing himself to get better in his 6th year in the league. A lot of people would say he's already is what he is, but that's not the way Rock looks at it. He wants to get better and better and better. When you stop getting better, you never stay the same in life. You either get a little better or you get a little worse, right? That's just the way it is. Nobody ever stays the same. We either work at it, we get better, or we don't work at it, we get worse. So Rock Ya-Sin, very good stuff there. He works at it. He wants to be here because he wants to get better. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Raph for producing today. Thanks to John Boyle from Seahawks.com. Thanks to Rock Ya-Sin. JD's up next with Just Dubs. I'm going to join JD and Copes and Dennis Brown tomorrow for a segment on the Niner pregame, on the Niner postgame. So we'll see you tomorrow. Big Niner Sunday. I like the 49ers to win and cover. I think they're going to win this game by 10 to 12 points. I like the 49ers minus the points tomorrow against Seattle. Have a great Saturday. Enjoy some college football. And right now, enjoy JD, the hardest working guy there is, with Just Dubs. It's right now on the Sports Leader.
Dub Nation. Dub Nation.
Big fat dub.
Whenever we can, wherever we can, we're talking hoops. And you know our guys will ramble.
Can you just email me the rest of this story?
This is Just Dubs with John Dickinson.
Dickinson's an underrated talent, 100%.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Wells off the bounce, leans in, pass deflected. Good help defense from the Warriors. Oh, what a pass! And Kuminga throws it down! Podziemski with a sensational assist.
Yeah, play of the night last night over at Chase Center. Warriors win against the Grizzlies, 123-118. Mike Breen on the call there on ESPN. And that game was a little rough around the edges over at Chase last night. But a win is a win is a win if you're a Golden State Warriors fan. And the Warriors continue to stack victories here in the first 12 games of this season. We welcome you into Just Dubs with JD John Dickinson for the next hour here on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, the number to join the conversation, 415-808-5627. And the Warriors have done something that they've done quite a bit in the Steve Kerr era, and that's get off to a hot start. And so much of the conversation in the lead up to this season, going back to Media Day and the team spending training camp over in Hawaii leading up to their first preseason game, the undefeated preseason for the Warriors at 6-0. And a lot of the discussion was about, could this team get off to a good start? There was a belief that it was necessary to get off to a good start. And the thing that has been true in these other times that the Warriors have been able to get off to good starts, it really has been the indicator of whether or not they're going to have a special season or a season where they just kind of slog their way through, or maybe things get completely off the rails as they did in the COVID year with the Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry injuries. When this team has started well and been connected in the Steve Kerr era, they've gone on to do big, big things. And so to see this team in the first 12 games not only take advantage of an easy schedule, in particular at the jump, but also to be able to use that easy schedule to propel themselves into wins at Boston and at Oklahoma City, and from 7 down in the final 4 minutes at home in the game that saw Klay Thompson return to Chase Center this past Tuesday, without a lot of letdowns along the way. I thought last night was a letdown, but the Warriors were able to still get the win and lead by 24, and it got ugly late, and it was just an unaesthetically pleasing game, to be sure, with a lot of fouls, and both teams ticked off at the officiating, and just not a lot of flow as the night wore on over at Chase Center. But 10-2 is 10-2, and the Warriors take the weekend off, and they'll take on the Clippers and the Hawks coming up this week before a couple of road games. They go to New Orleans and San Antonio, and they've got an opportunity right now to really get this thing kick-started into high gear. And the other little theme that has been prevalent through October and now here through the first half of November is the similarities that are starting to happen with the team 3 years ago that out of nowhere started off 5-1, 6-0, 11-1, and all of a sudden they're 18-2, and it's a quarter away through the season, and it's almost January, and they're 18-2, and suddenly championship contenders. Now I don't know if we're necessarily to that point yet, where we're having the discussion about could the Warriors be legitimate championship contenders. But through the first now almost a month of the season, we're coming up on that mark here in the next week, the Warriors have consistently, whether it's been level of opponent, and they've taken on all comers from the defending champions to teams that project to be among the worst in the NBA, and the teams that they've played among the worst in the NBA, they've dominated, and they've got some big wins and even road wins against a team that was the 1 seed and the current still 1 seed in Oklahoma City, 11-2 right now, and the defending NBA champion Boston Celtics, who sit at 10-3 and then the number 2 spot in the Eastern Conference. Now, they did get thumped by the Cavs, but they've also handled business early on this season against the Wizards and the Jazz and the Blazers, among other teams. So 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. That is the number to give me a call or shoot me a text here on Just Dubs on the Sports Leader. We got the great Raf Corral back in our San Francisco studios as well. And we got Greg Silver in our San Francisco studios as well here. Greg, what's going on, my man? How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Yeah, the control room camera does not want to cooperate at the moment, so that's why I was disappeared on your stream view. But I'm just a ghost. I'm here. I'm here, though. I'm good. We're good.
Now, love having you here, and obviously just briefly, the big news surrounding Greg Silver is he's going to be moving over 10-2 Monday through Friday, going to be working with Greg Papa in a show that's going to launch on Monday. So big congratulations for those that didn't get a chance to either see the news on Friday afternoon as it broke or hear about it and see about it when we did Dubs OT last night after the Warriors beat the Memphis Grizzlies. So big, congratulations for this audience to Greg. And as I said last night, Greg's not really going anywhere. We're going to have, Raf's going to be more involved. Kyle Hart's going to be more involved in a lot of our day-to-day operations of Just Dubs here on Saturdays and Dubs OT following each and every Warriors game. But Greg is still going to be a big part of it and popping in a lot and obviously helping through the technical transition here as he gets his new gig kickstarted and we kind of ramp up things moving forward. But, Greg, again, congratulations, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you as much as you can put up with me, which after the last year, we'll see. It's kind of a coin flip.
No, thank you very much, and gotten a lot of kind wishes and good lucks over the last day and a half, and it's been just an overwhelming week all around, very mixed, and I know we're all feeling it. But, I'm really excited to continue to be doing some stuff for Dubs OT and Just Dubs because this was like our little baby that is almost a year old now, and so the thought of just leaving it all together, that would stink, and I'm glad that we don't have to do that.
No, as am I, and I was already a little nervous because I'm bringing up the cameras and I'm starting the show, and I'm like, all right, we got Raf, and I'm like, I think we have Greg, or did Greg just decide? Yeah, I got stuff to do, man. Like I got to get ready for Monday.
I'm not a full timer right now. I'm not a full timer.
I was like, what's going on? And then just a minor technical issue, but that's all right. That camera can be extremely temperamental, as we know from a lot of the shows that we've done here over the course of the last year. So this week, I mean, you think about it, 3 games this week for the Warriors, another one of those prove-it games to me in Oklahoma City at the end of a long road trip, coming off of a couple of showdown games against the Cavaliers and the Celtics. You beat the Celtics. You get destroyed by the Cavaliers. That happens. Nobody's beaten the Cavaliers to this point. They're still 14-0 to start the season, which is historic. It's the best start since the Warriors were 24-0 going back 9 years ago in 2015, 2016. So truly historic what the Cavs are doing. Set that aside, how would the Warriors bounce back in Oklahoma City, knowing that they already had secured a really good trip at 3-2, and they went out and built a 30-point lead against the Thunder and had to hang on down the stretch, but did hang on. Impressive win in that vein, and really impressive victories for the Warriors this week in 3 different ways, right? The blowout win on the road at OKC, basically a statement, I think, that, hey, this team might be in the conversation with some of these other teams that we've talked about at the top of the NBA, and then to have all of the emotion on display over at Chase Center with the return of Klay Thompson and the 18,000 captain hats and Clay playing extremely well, and just the energy and enthusiasm in the building for that one on Tuesday night, and to play really well for long stretches of that game, first and third quarters, have it get away in the beginning of the second and fourth quarters to the point where it looks with 5 minutes left, Warriors are down 5. Klay Thompson hits what he believed was a dagger 3 that did not go down as a dagger, going back to our conversation from this program last week, did not go down as a dagger because they didn't end up winning the game. But Dallas pushed the lead to 7 with 4:17 to go. Took a timeout because they got another stop, so had the ball. Warriors able to get it back. DeAnthony Melton hits a 3, and then Steph Curry takes over the game. And the Warriors are able to rally and win that one in emotional and dramatic fashion, 120-117. And then I think impressive in its own right, and maybe I'm overstating it, Greg. You can come down my road here. I thought last night was impressive in that everybody knew that follows the Dubs, covers the Dubs, is a fan of the Dubs. Everybody knew that last night was going to be an ugly game, that last night was going to feel like a letdown by comparison to what we had seen Tuesday and really what we had seen in OKC and Cleveland and Boston, all of those games that just seemed to have much more juice, even though it was an Emirates Cup game last night, even though Mike Breen was on hand last night and gave Draymond Green a little mini bang for one of Draymond's three-pointers. Impressive last night to me in a different way for the Dubs because you knew it was going to be ugly, but they still were able to build a 24-point lead and win without much drama.
Sorry, I was looking through the Mike Breen, Draymond Green bang call. You sent me on a whole side quest there. But
it was a good one. No, we had it. Yeah, we had it last night.
We had it last night. It was great. It was actually part of the show close montage as well. So, I'm with you in that it was a very expected letdown, especially with Ja Morant not playing too, and that just kind of takes some of the star power out of what has been still somewhat of a recent rivalry. I know the Grizzlies, kind of everything went south last year, but they got a chance to be a good team again, as do the Warriors. So I think there's still a little bit of animosity between these two teams. And you know what, though? I'll say this. We knew it was going to be a letdown spot, but at the end of the day, they still won. And when you're winning in these letdown spots, all that really matters is you're 10-2 in your first 12. And I'm a little bit hesitant and wary of the 2022 comparisons because when people think 2022, they think of how it ended. And I don't think this is, one of the best two teams in the entire league right now. But it's also gotten to a point with their defense and their depth and the results where this isn't some kind of fluke either. So This is very much a for real team. I don't know if they're going to be at the very end competing for a championship, but we have to at least take the start very seriously.
Well, they have an identity. They're connected. And here's my thing. And we were discussing this when I was over in Hawaii during training camp. I'm a firm believer in you can come up with your own opinions of what you believe a team is or can be for an individual season. We all should do that. Those of us that do what we do, hey, look at what they did, look at what they tried to do, look at how it worked out, look at the roster that they built, and then listen to their version. So you can have your opinion of what you think it is. And then you listen to Mike Dunleavy and Steve Kerr when they come out before media day and before the team heads to Hawaii for training camp, and they can discuss what they envision the team to be. My belief always in really any sport, in any season, is you come up with your opinions of what you think the team is. You listen to what the actual people in charge say their vision or belief in what the team can be is, and then you see if they are correct in their assessments as things start to play out. And I think the one thing that we have seen here is things are very much going according to plan. And I know there was skepticism. I know there are people that are probably still a little skeptical because this Warriors team does not have a true number 2 scorer. it hasn't burned them yet. It's almost burned them in a couple of games. It almost burned them in the Dallas game specifically, where you have to get it from somebody, but you don't necessarily know on a given night who you're going to get it from and how all of that is going to ultimately shake out. But on a lot of these nights against other teams, the Warriors have found that guy, whether it's been Buddy Hield or Jonathan Kuminga or DeAnthony Melton or Brandon Pajemski or Draymond Green knocking down multiple threes. And the Warriors, 55-7 now when he knocks down 3 or more three-pointers in a game in the regular season. So they've been getting it from a number of different contributors. Andrew Wiggins has been a part of it. Hell, there's been a lot of, Gary Payton's made a small, not as a secondary scorer, but as a positive, impactful rotation player. Gary Payton II's been a part of it. Kevon Looney's been a little part of it. Lindy Waters III has been a part of it in that game that Stephen Curry, one of the games he missed against the Pelicans at Chase Center going back a couple of weeks ago. So when you look at what the Warriors organizationally envisioned this team to be after they were pretty honest in acknowledging the fact that they struck out on the two big things this offseason that everybody knew they were trying to do. They were trying to get Paul George. Didn't work out. Clippers didn't want to play ball. Warriors maybe didn't totally want to commit to a package that was going to really move the needle enough for the Clippers to even truly consider it. But it sounds like the Clippers just didn't want to play ball regardless. And so that ends up, Paul George goes to Philly, and everybody kind of moves on. And that led the Warriors down that path of Lauri Markkanen. And, Danny Ainge wanted the next 5 drafts and every good young player on the Warriors roster and then a couple of other guys to boot. So that didn't come to fruition. And then Lauri Markkanen ends up signing a massive extension with the Jazz. The Warriors were very clear that they tried and were disappointed in some ways at their inability to get that clear-cut number 2 player next to Steph Curry. They also pivoted and said, let's try and build the deepest, most connected, balanced roster we can and win as many regular season games as they can and see where that leaves them in terms of the pecking order of the Western Conference and the NBA at large, and also where it leaves them as far as positioning themselves still to believe that they can go out and make a big-time move to get a number 2 or somebody that can be at least he's the guy on a night-in, night-out basis next to Steph Curry. And if that means you give up some of that depth, then so be it. But that becomes a discussion that you have to have. So to this point, when the Warriors spoke, Greg, to the notion of they wanted to have an extremely deep team, they wanted to have a team that had a defensive identity first, that had a lot of length and was going to be just scrappy, hustling defenders. They've done that, and that has set the tone for this early part of the season. The depth is there, the scrappiness is there, the defense is there, the balance in terms of different skill sets is there, and then offensively, it's been a whole lot of shooting the 3 ball. It's been trying to use the defensive stops to really move the ball up the floor and play at a high pace, shoot a lot of threes, allow for Stephen Curry to be Stephen Curry, but really allow for everybody other than Stephen Curry on a given night to have a chance to shine and be that number 2 guy. Again, regular season, I think you're more apt to be able to get away with that more consistently than you can in a playoff series where you're playing the same team over and over and over, and teams really try to cut out your number 1 guy and whoever your projected number 2 guy is, and they make everybody else beat you. But as the season goes on, I think the teams are going to do that to the Warriors, and they're going to have to figure out the level at which they can still continue to compete and contend on a nightly basis, doing it that way. And if they think they can, maybe they have to take a strong look at keeping this team together come the deadline. If they think that they need a little more or that's not going to click, maybe they look to make the big move. But to this point, Greg, this team has been as advertised in the way that they were built, and I think maybe even a little bit better than advertised when you look at the actual wins that they have in the books.
I would certainly say better than advertised. And my big criticism over the offseason for this team was they have a lot of capable players without having a number 2, and I wasn't sure they were going to be able to make it work rotation-wise, and I've been proven wrong, and I've been happy to see myself proven wrong with all these different guys getting minutes. Lindy Waters III getting the start last night. So when Steve Kerr said he would feel comfortable starting him before that first Clippers game, he wasn't joking. He really did get the start, and of course he exited with the hyperextended knee there late first half, but we'll keep an eye on him and DeAnthony Melton's injury with the sprained ACL, rather. And so, yeah, here's what I will say, though, as a kind of a little closing thought here in segment 1. This team on paper is very much built more regular season than for the postseason. However, one thing I will say bodes very well for the postseason is look at the minutes Steph Curry has played. And I guess I should say look at the lack of minutes he has played. He didn't play the fourth quarter last night. The Warriors took care of business in some big blowouts to open the season on the road. Last year and the year before that, Steph was getting worked in his mid-30s to go and play a lot of minutes for a team that was trying to stay afloat. And, you know, they were able to win a playoff series in 22 against the Kings. But both seasons, it kind of ended with the crash and burn effect where the team didn't have much left in the tank, specifically Steph.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the games, you know, Steph has had to do a lot in some individual games to help put the Warriors over the top, but he's also had a couple of games he's missed due to injury, and then he's also had a number of games where he's been sitting on the bench for the entire fourth quarter and not having to play the significant minutes like last night when the Grizzlies were really trying to take him out and let anybody else beat them. And the Warriors were able to have a balanced attack. Steph only had 13. He only took 9 shots, only played 26 minutes. But you look at all of the different contributions that the Warriors had. Andrew Wiggins, 13. Draymond Green, 13. Even Trace Jackson Davis and Lindy Waters, 9 and 8. I mean, everybody. Buddy Hield, 18. Kyle Anderson, 8. Pajemski, 11. Moody, 14. And then Jonathan Kuminga pitches in 8 in addition to that. So it wasn't necessarily the best game from Jonathan Kuminga. And offensively, he really struggled. He didn't hit a 3, and he was 3 for 13, only played 18 minutes. But even your worst guys, you had 3-4 guys that gave you 8 or 9. And then so they really, truly did it with balance when you look at the fact that, I mean, I'm just counting it up here. 5, they had 6, 7, 8, 9. They had 10 guys who had 8 or more. They had 6 in double figures, but they had nobody who had any more than 18 in the game, and they scored 123 points, which is incredible when you look at doing it with that level of balance without somebody truly being dominant. So I think that shows off the template for what the Warriors have here. So 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. It is John Dickinson with Just Dubs here on a Saturday morning. We got Greg Silver, we got Raf Corral in our San Francisco studios, and we're talking some Dubs as we do each and every Saturday here on the Sports Leader. We'll dig into the YouTube chat coming up here in a moment. We'll get to the Golden State Lumber and Building Materials text line. If you want to jump in and join the conversation on the phone lines, we could do that as well. At 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. It's Just Dubs with JD, John Dickinson here on the Sports Leader.
I got to say this. Bang!
Sound right, boy. it sound right, boy.
This is KNBR, and this is Just Dubs with John Dickinson, streaming live on YouTube at KNBR 1045.
Yeah, they remind me a lot of Tony, Tim, and Manu. Just the competitive nature on and off the court. They're prepared for every game. One thing I loved about Tony, Tim, and Manu, they played hard on Tuesday nights, TV games, big games, small games, things like that. So Steph and Dre kind of bring that same presence. Just locked in every day, attention to detail is key. You can see why they've won so many championships.
All right, Kyle Anderson from postgame last night, comparing Stephen Curry and Draymond Green to Tony Parker, Tim Duncan, and Manu Ginobili. Of course, Anderson coming up with San Antonio early in his career and now joining the Warriors. And isn't it interesting to hear Kyle Anderson and Buddy Hield specifically, and I think D'Anthony Melton to a lesser extent, but Buddy Hield hasn't exactly had a distinguished career in terms of always maybe being respected by his teammates or certain fan bases. I think there's always kind of been, Buddy Hield can shoot it really, really well. And then there are other things on the court he doesn't really do well, like just about everything. Like, I think that was the perception of Buddy Hield based on the way that he had played throughout the course of his career. He has not been that guy with the Warriors at all. And I think part of the reason he would tell you is the respect level that he has for the tone that Steph Curry and Draymond Green set. And I think where Buddy and Kyle Anderson are also aligned, and to a lesser extent DeAnthony Melton, they've all competed against the Warriors at the peak of the Warriors' powers. And they've seen it from being on the other side, and they've been defeated by it from playing on the other side. And I think there's a respect level when you've competed against those guys at the highest level and seen the intensity and the attention to detail and the focus and the determination and the sheer talent and ability that they bring to the table, that you want to be a part of it. And it's interesting because not only do you want to be a part of it, but I feel like Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson view what the Warriors have here in the Bay as, they view it from the lens of the big years. They view it from the lens of the dynastic run and the championship of even 2.5 years ago. They view it more from that perspective than, say, the perspective that we've viewed this Warriors team from the last couple of years, which is, kind of on the downturn, maybe not making the most of the final Steph Prime years, not really a championship contender anymore, and the pieces haven't fit together, and they're just kind of doing their thing and playing it out. Well, the guys that they've brought in have not viewed Steph and Draymond in that vein, and so they've come up, and I think you're getting a better Buddy Hield and even Kyle Anderson and DeAnthony Melton from the guys, especially Buddy. I think Melton and Anderson are just the guys that they are, and they've both been really good, productive players at the things that they do in the NBA. But Buddy Hield, I think, is somebody that has been more locked in the ways that he's struggled early on in his career, and I think that's why he has been playable at the level that he's been playable, and he also is shot at lights out in addition to that. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Let's get to Sean in San Rafael here on the Sports Leader. Good morning, Sean.
Yo, what up, JD? How you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to obviously talk a little Dubs, and, I think what's leading to the 10-2 start, Obviously, I think a lot of other teams would like to be in our shoes. Certainly not the Cavs. They're playing good ball right now. But I think what I've seen, at least from watching the Dubs, is there's so much more defensive focus this year. I don't know if it's Jerry Stackhouse or Steve Kerr or just the entire team, but I just see so much more defensive intensity compared to last year. And obviously going on that tough road trip to Cleveland and Boston, winning in Boston was obviously a big game. So I think they're playing well.
They're playing great. And the defensive intensity has been, I think, the number one most notable dramatic difference. And I do think Jerry Stackhouse gets a lot of credit in coming in and basically taking over the defensive coordinator type role, to use the football analogy with it, and his attention to detail and his intensity that he brings as somebody that really doesn't put up with a lot of mistakes or a lack of accountability. And I think he really has gotten Draymond Green to buy in to his system and the way he prepares things. And I think if you can get Draymond Green to believe in what you're bringing to the table, I think everybody else on the roster down the line falls into place with it. But yeah, defensive intensity, I think, comes from preparation and more game plan specific type things, which I mentioned last night on Dubs OT, Sean. But it also, to your point, has a lot to do with just playing harder and trying harder and as I like to say, giving a bleep So I think that's been there as well, and it's led to this point where it's become their identity, and they wanted it to be their identity and felt they needed it to be their identity if they were going to have a chance to have the kind of start that they've had.
Yeah, no, and the offense is that. Like, I remember listening or maybe reading an article, but it was Pujemski last year talking about what the team needed. They don't need more shooting. They had Steph Curry, and back then they had Klay Thompson. Like, they don't need more shooting. They got the offense, or at least the shooting part down. They need rebounding, and they need defense.
And they've had it, and they've rebounded, for being one of the smaller teams. And thank you, Sean, for the call. Appreciate it, man. Make sure you check in here in the future, Sean in San Rafael. 808 KNBR 415-808-5627. I do think they still needed shooting, and I think they've added shooting. I think they did. They lost Klay Thompson, but they added shooting with Buddy Hield. They added some shooting with DeAnthony Melton. They added some shooting with Lindy Waters. They've added some shooting in terms of just the way the offense is going to operate to give some of the players who have been here better, cleaner looks from the right spots on the floor. If that ends up being Andrew Wiggins or Moses Moody, who knocked down 3 threes last night, Kyle Anderson, somebody that can make some threes, all of that, I think it's 3-point shot by committee for the Warriors. But you look at the intensity that they brought defensively, the attention to detail that they brought defensively, the accountability, Greg, which is something we've talked about a lot, and Jerry Stackhouse and the spreadsheets that he's bringing out as far as what guys are doing and maybe not doing on a night in, night out basis. There is a full-blown buy-in on that end of the ball, and I think the Warriors in 8-9 of the 12 games to this point have been exceptional defensively.
This is sort of my big takeaway through 12 games. It's not the team is bought in and they're connected. I mean, they are, right? That kind of goes without saying with the 10-2 start and what we've seen. My big takeaway is that for as much as Draymond Green should be criticized for the last 2 seasons of disconnect that the team has had, he deserves to be praised for the start of how this team has gone. And that, we'll see how sustainable it is. Long way to go. We're 12 out of 82 right now. But this version of Draymond, the playing emotional and on the edge, but not going over the line, not putting his team in jeopardy, being there, being available, coaching up the young players, being motivated on defense, and just kind of that competitive contagiousness. I think Tuesday against the Mavericks, that is one of the best games I've seen from Draymond Green in a long, long time. I thought he played an A+ out of his mind game. And that kind of energy and setting the standard with the help of a coach like Jerry Stackhouse is a huge part of why they are 10-2 after 12.
It is everything. And I think part of that, and I don't want to, I'm kind of joking about this, but part of it is his ability to control his emotions. And part of it is his ability to not pick up the technicals, although he did pick up a couple technicals last night and got ejected down the stretch. And his pace in terms of his technicals is now off a little bit. He's got 3 in 12 games. So that's not he was doing great. If he could have made it through last night with 2 through 12 games, I think he'd feel pretty good about it. But 3 in 12 games is not necessarily where you want to be if you are going to get in the single digits in terms of overall technicals. It didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things as far as the outcome of the game. He didn't really lose it to the point where it became something that needed, is going to need to be addressed today or for the next week, and there's no suspension coming or anything like that. So I think that part of it is for the most part a throwaway. And look, maybe Draymond knows, hey man, I'm doing great. We're going to win this game anyway. I'm going to make my point tonight and not do it in the first 5 minutes of a game that the Warriors really need to get and set the team off in a really bad spot. So in essence, he kind of picked his spot to lose his cool a little bit when it didn't really matter as much as we've seen him do it in the past at the wrong time.
I mean, and look, not that technical fouls are a good thing, but the 3 technical fouls he's gotten this year are all pretty acceptable standard technical fouls. It's not choking out another player. It's not slapping someone across the face. It's not losing his cool to the point where he's like in a ref's face and saying things he shouldn't say. He's been complaining to the refs for 3 technicals as far as I'm concerned. And by the way, I don't think that the crew last night was necessarily deserving of a whole lot of praise. And I'm not just saying that from my own eye test. I'm saying that based on the temperament of the Warriors as that game was winding down in the final 5 minutes and the things they were saying in postgame.
Yeah, it was not the best officiated game. And I don't really like to get into the whole official thing. It didn't really impact the outcome. Maybe it impacted the spread. There might be a few gamblers out there that are like, that cost me a little something, the fact that the Grizzlies were living at the line there in the fourth quarter. But, yeah, not the best officiated game. I think there were some things going on that the Warriors were frustrated with throughout the night that came to a head in the final 5-6 minutes. And it spilled over to Draymond's ejection, to Steve Kerr kind of flipping out at the end of the game as he was heading to the tunnel. And then the post-game comments where you had Buddy Hield commenting on it. You had Steve Kerr not wanting to comment on it. But, yeah, Buddy Hield, I think they messed up a lot. They call ticky-tack fouls one side. They got to call it the other way. You can't just reward them because we're up 15 or 17. And I think maybe we'll play that cut coming back. I know we got a break, but it really – I think that's what the Warriors felt. The Warriors felt that the Grizzlies were getting the benefit of some calls almost to try and keep the game a little closer than it was at that particular point in time. So we'll continue the conversation. 808-KNBR, 415-808-5627 if you want to jump in and join in. John Dickinson, Greg Silver, Raf Corral, Just Dubs, Saturday morning on the Sports Leader.
live from downtown.
Hurry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Just Dubs with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader, streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
I think we played great until they started doing that. I think they tried to junk up the game, and I know hats off to Memphis, they're aggressive, but I just think that when they call ticky-tack fouls on one side, they got to call it back on the way. You can't just reward them because we're up by 15, up by 17. You know, I think if we deserve a call, we should get it. That's all I'm saying. I think they kind of.
All right, Buddy Hield, post-game. Yeah, among the comments, we kind of read that quote before we went to break. Playing it for you here. It's Just Dubs with JD, John Dickinson. 808 KNBR, 415-808-5627. Final couple of minutes here on a Saturday, and letting everybody know we're going to be back on Monday following the Warriors and the Clippers from down in Los Angeles. I'll be on hand down in Los Angeles for that one, and we'll have Dubs OT for you immediately following the game on KNBR and on YouTube and Twitch as well. So appreciate everybody who will be tuning in on Monday night for the first game that the Warriors are going to play in Intuit Dome, which I think is going to be fascinating. Look, my issue with the officials last night was more that they just made the game unwatchable. And it was already kind of a disgusting game, as Greg Silver had said during the break. And then any semblance of flow that was starting to be built just got tossed away when the officials would not swallow the whistles on anything. And it also, the game reached that point with about 7 minutes left where everybody was really just waiting for the game to end. And it was like, all right, Warriors got this. They're up 24 with 8 minutes left. Let's run the clock. Let's run the clock and get this thing going and get on into the weekend. And then that was the moment in which, and you give the Grizzlies credit because, yeah, they kept playing, and Buddy Hield did, but it really becomes a situation where I think everybody kind of was accepting of what the night was going to be, and then it just dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged. And all of a sudden you look up, and it was working for the Grizzlies because the Warriors are picking up techs and the Grizzlies are at the free throw line, and it ended up being a 5-point spread, although nobody really, I thought, at any point truly believed that the Warriors were in danger when you look at the way things shook out. So it was like it just kept getting closer, and the game kept not ending. But from the point in which the Warriors were up 24 with 7:56 to go, I mean, you look at, they're up 18 with 6:30 to go. With about 4 minutes to go, they're still up 18. So there really wasn't a move in the margin, but he yielded a 3. They were up 21 with 4:01 to go. They're up 15 with 2:15 to go. I mean, it just, and then foul, offensive foul, free throws, technical on Draymond, 3 more free throws. Moses Moody made a 3 with a minute. I mean, even with a minute and a half left, it was a 14-point game, and Brandon Pajemski able to hit a couple of free throws. But yeah, the Grizzlies just living at the line in those final couple of minutes, and it just, a game that was already a slog was really just brought to a screeching halt as the outcome had been already decided.
I couldn't believe when I looked up that it was a 5-point final score. I was like, it was 123 to 118? Is that
well?
Okay?
And I headed over. You know, I'll pop over if a game's decided. I'll try to get over to Harmonic a little bit quicker in the final couple of minutes to make sure we're set up and ready to roll as close to the end of the game as possible. And I did that last night with about 2.5 minutes left, and the Warriors were up 15. I'm thinking, okay, this thing's going to cruise. And it ended up being 15 minutes of actual time, because there were reviews and there were technicals and there were free throws and I mean all these arguments and challenges, and I mean it was just I've never seen anything like it in a game that was decided really at even the 8-minute mark. Final couple of minutes here. let's look ahead a little bit at what's coming up for the Warriors as they sit right now at 10-2. Before we reconvene next week for Just Dubs, the Warriors are going to play Monday against the Clippers down at Intuit Dome. They're going to play the Hawks at Chase Center on Wednesday, and then they're going to play another Emirates Cup in-season tournament game Friday against the Pelicans before they play San Antonio on Saturday. So it's going to be a busy week for the Warriors, and the games are really starting to come rapid fire here after they get the next 2 days off. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and then they go Monday, Wednesday again leading into the Thanksgiving holiday before they go and play Phoenix, and then have a couple of days before they play Denver, and then things kind of slow down a little bit around that first weekend of December. But the Clippers did beat the Warriors, one of the two losses that the Warriors have on the season, and then the Hawks, and then the Pelicans, who are really, really banged up, although the Pelicans did beat the Nuggets last night. But even with that win, the Pelicans just 4-9 to begin the year. This is a real opportunity. I mean, the Clippers are 6-7, the Hawks are 6-7, and the Pelicans are 4-9 these next three. This is more, I think, the traditional kind of slog in the schedule, though, Greg, where the games start coming every other day. And I think this actually bodes well for the Warriors. I think this is where the Warriors are built, as long as they can stay relatively healthy, to keep winning, because they are so balanced and have so many different options as to who can come through for them on a given night to help them win. A lot of these other teams know they need a couple of guys, the same guys, to come through for them to be able to win. And sometimes those guys have an off night or are unavailable due to injury, or it's just the kind of game where a team is caught in the slog of going through the motions of a regular season. And so, I mean, I'm not saying the Warriors win all three of these games, but I think they've got a hell of a shot to win all three of these games with the way that they've played on the road and with the level of opponent that they're playing, and where the Warriors have been in terms of their focus throughout the course of the season. I think they got a shot to keep this thing going and get it beyond 10-2 and maybe even into the teens.
Absolutely. I mean, look, the one game that was non-competitive for them on the bad side of it was the Cleveland game. So, and that's a team that hasn't lost yet. They're 14-0. So, yeah, they should have a shot to win every game for as long as Steph Curry's healthy, and they even managed to stay afloat without him. So, absolutely, I'm excited for Monday. I'm excited for Dubs OT to keep rolling on, and Just Dubs to keep rolling on, and we'll see where it goes over the next few days, though, and if they're able to win all three and extend to 13-2, that'd be something.
Yeah, it would be something for sure. So, Greg, great stuff, my man. Really appreciate you. We'll talk to you next week quite a bit. Best of luck to you. I know you're going to be helping out with a lot of the transition, so I think you're going to be around a lot next week, kind of no matter what. But appreciate your hard work, and best of luck as you enjoy the weekend and get ready for Monday with Pop. And then I'm going to be with you on Tuesday for your new show as well from 10-2 from L.A. after the Warriors take on the Clippers. So looking forward to Monday night. Looking forward to continuing to get things rolling as we shift some things around on Dubs OT, and then looking forward to doing the show with you on Tuesday.
Absolutely. It's going to be great, and we're just going to find a way to keep this thing going, because as I've been told as a youngster by a lot of people that have done this for longer than me, it does not stop.
It doesn't stop. Nope. No question. It does not stop, but enjoy the weekend. You're going to need it. Enjoy the weekend. Try to get some rest, and we'll talk to you on Monday. And again, make sure you're listening to Greg with Greg Papa beginning Monday from 10-2. For Greg Silver and Raf Corral, I'm JD. We'll talk to you Monday right here on KNBR 104.5 and 680, the sports leader. JD on a Saturday just feels right.